to talk about officiating. Now, when people sit back and go, "Oh, you're going to talk about officiating. Oh, you're going to critique them." No, we don't do that. We are going to talk about something rather serious, though, and that is a shortage of officials in all sports in the Mahoning Valley. And to talk a little bit about that, we bring in the guy in charge of officiating for the Mahoning Valley, or at least in Mahoning and Trumbull counties, John Mang Sr. John, how are you today, sir?
I'm doing very well, Ron. Thanks for having me on.
Well, thank you for coming on. You know, a few years ago, I had you on terrestrial radio when I was doing my show over in Boardman, and we were talking about the fact that there is a problem in terms of a shortage of officiating in all sports. And I'd like to think that it's gotten better, but John, I'm afraid that it's gotten worse. Am I correct in this?
You definitely are, and it's not just a local thing, but a statewide issue also.
All right. So, which sport in particular is on the hot seat in terms of really low officials in this area?
Well, I would have to think, and I don't assign, although I'm involved in it, but I don't assign track. Track is very fragile right now with volleyball, and I would have to say that there's never enough basketball officials. So really, if you take your pick, I mean, you can go down the line, but those are probably the most crucial. But wrestling officials is another one. But basketball and football right up there with the rest of them. Baseball and softball always have been a challenge because of the amount of money it takes to get started in baseball and softball. But we've kind of helped that. We've nipped that in the bud a little bit as far as some of the leagues in the area, which I will talk about in a second here if you give me the time. But all sports overall, like you wanted me to single out, but the ones I just mentioned, there's really not a sport out there that we can say we're comfortable with the amount of officials we have.
And I imagine that this school year has been really tough because there are probably a handful or even more officials that didn't really feel comfortable officiating with the COVID restrictions in place and everything. Now that that's dying down a little bit, do you think we'll see a little bit more come back to the fray and help out a little bit in this school year?
Well, I was going over my notes from last year, of course, if you remember, the pandemic completely wiped out spring sports. We never got a game in. We had a tentative schedule, and we kind of shuffled it until we're going to start the regular season at the end of April or first part of May, if you remember. And then they just wiped out everything because of the COVID-19 problems that we were having with quarantine and everything else. So all spring sports were wiped out. But I would have to say, starting with the school year for 2020, with the football and the volleyball and everything, probably had about 20 to 25% of all officials opt out not to officiate because of the pandemic, maybe because not of their health issue, but they didn't want to bring something home to their family if they were out and picked up the virus or whatever. So I lost about 20, 25%. And when you're talking each sport, get an example like you talking, maybe I think I have about 375 basketball officials because I have 43 schools from Wellsville all the way up to Jefferson. But the amount of officials, but you start talking 30%, you're talking, well, if I had 300 officials, that'd be 90 officials. So they're out for the year. And then I had a number of officials that were quarantined for periods of time. And you're talking, if you remember, it was like from 10 days to 2 weeks, quarantines. It was just a hassle, not just for the officials, but for everybody involved. But my hats off to every official. I mean, there's always, if you go to a game, you might hear a comment, no matter what sport it is. Oh, that official's out there just for money. He's not really caring about the sport. Well, I'll tell you what, this is just a true testament on how the officials in our area, and not just our area, but the state and probably also the country, but it was for the love of the game because we had a lot of officials that did a lot of games, probably more than usual because of the amount of shortages we had. But I'm very proud to say, though, that of all the games or all the schools that I assigned for, we did not have one game canceled because of lack of officials or officials not showing up or JV officials not going and varsity are there or whatever the case may be. And also I heard some more stories because we had a lot of our schools that traveled to other areas to do a basketball game and there were no officials there a few times and there were some issues, but the dedication and the communications was just excellent. But as far as the officials themselves, now I don't really know. I can give you a little taste of it. Last year, with no spring sports, when I'm the secretary of our baseball and softball association here in the area for Mahoning County, and I can speak for Trumbull County too. Tom Barzak helps me out, and also John Babalik down in Columbiana County. It's like a network, but I would have to say I lost probably 20 to 30 officials out of 140. So that takes the cut into you. And really the class this year, I had 5 softball and I think I had 2 baseball. Excuse me, that doesn't make up for what I've lost, but we're trying in other areas in Trumbull as far as officials, there are classes there too, but the numbers just aren't there. But I think what's really helped, and I'm very proud to say I'm the matter of fact, I have one more meeting with our superintendents from the Mahoning Valley Athletic Conference, and they bought in last year when the 7 schools from the AAC came in and we combined to make the MVAC actually it's a 16-team league now. We added Garfield for one of our divisions, so we're a very solid 16-school league. And they bought in and said, John, what can we do to promote or help with the officiating issues we have? And they came up with a 2-year program that I went in and actually did some research in Stark County and Akron area and the Cleveland area and come back with numbers of what the officials were getting paid in these areas and came up with a very, very healthy package that when I went and promoted it, because this was for every sport, every level, there were increases for the officials, and it did nothing but help. It promoted the sports. I can see the officials, the older officials. I think that they got this sense of pride in them now that they know that they are not just taken for granted, but they are being compensated for doing the job that they do, and by having the experienced officials with new officials coming in, it's just a very good blend where it's helping. I have picked up on basketball officiating and football officials. I was talking to Tony Tarantino, who is a instructor for football for a number of years in Mahoning County, and he projects to have about 15 officials taking the course. And all these things just add up to a positive. We would never have enough officials. We're always asking. Ron, you got on board about 2 or 3 years ago, and you found out that the road to officiating high school sports by getting on a field and doing everything right. I mean, right now you're getting into some varsity level ball yourself, and you've been an asset now. Although you were when you became an official, we're doing JV ball, but you can tell just in the last 3 years, just because of game fees and everything, I think it makes you feel like you don't mind maybe traveling that extra 10 miles if I ask you to go someplace out of your area to cover a game. So it all works out. It's all good stuff. But I can't wait for next week. We have our last superintendent meeting with the MVAC, and I want to shake each one of their hands because of the direction and just everything they've done this past year, going above everything as far as this COVID and state regulations and mandates from the county and the governor's office being involved. And it's unbelievable. And we got through a school year that was very, very trying on everyone. And I can actually tell the 16 athletic directors and the principals, and I think everybody deserves somehow to take some kind of a break this summer and try to rejuvenate or whatever you want to say and get back into it for getting ready for another school year, because they just never stop. But you can tell that I'm a big fan of the MVAC, and then the OVAC with Howard Friend. They've taken the same road as far as the game fees and rates for the officials and that, and everything has worked out very well in their league. So I can't say enough about all the superintendents, and I'm also involved with the Northeast 8 and the AAC, and just all great people, and they were under the same issues and restrictions and athletic directors. If I don't have another Zoom meeting, Ron, for the next 2 years, I'd be happy. That's all I did this past year was Zoom meeting, and thank God we had it because it was a good way of communications. But the things that we got done and for the good of the kids, where they were actually able to play, and I think that's the most important thing. We still have a lot of great. Every community has great parents, and everybody's concerned about their student athletes. And calls I got about how can we do this, how can we do that, and the things we did get done, and all these championships that we had, and watching kids participate this spring in spring sports, playing football championships, and everything that happens is because of all these school administrators that we've had right down the road, as far as the supers and the principals and the ADs. And let's not forget one other part of this mix, the coaches. I can say the whole year, and I do a lot of assigning, I can say I never had one call from a coach saying any issues that we have, and usually we do over a play situation. That everybody was so involved with this COVID and making sure their kids were playing every week and being safe. The last thing they were worried about was the officiating, although we do great officials and crews and all that good stuff, but that was in the back burner. So my hat's somehow it's in June now, and it's just about behind us. And poor JFK, they're still trying to get their state championship run in here, and I wish them the best. But as far as the weather and everything that we've had and everything we went through, Ronnie, it was a heck of a ride. I can tell you that. I know I got off base a little bit, but when I sit back and think of everything that we did accomplish, it's just unbelievable. So.
All right, John, before we let you go, and obviously you're busy with a lot of stuff, but I've often said everyone can look at an arbitrary number for officials and say, oh, that's a lot of officials. Why do you guys complain about shortage of officials? I'll use football for an example. Not only are you playing varsity football, there's JV football, there's also junior high football, and then you have programs pre-junior high. All of those games need officials. So, if you have an arbitrary number, but you're using all of those people to do multiple events, it gets real tiring after a while for those guys. And you'll see guys that are varsity ready. All of a sudden, they have to be used in junior high because we don't have junior high officials.
You're 100% right, and I'll tell you what, my theory is, and it's worked out pretty well, is I never put two new officials on a game together. That would be like throwing gas on a fire, but I have a lot of experienced officials that have been taking lower-level games in all sports just to work with newer officials, and it's worked out very well. We have mentoring systems that, like you just said, we have mentoring systems with officials going out and critiquing and all the good stuff. And every association that I'm involved with in every sport, they have things set up in place where, and this is not for hearsay or to put a name on a piece of paper. These officials go out and work with young officials, and if an official doesn't make it, there's only one person they got to blame, is the one that they look at and they see it in the mirror, because everything that is done now is for the good of trying to keep officials. To retain them is the hardest thing. To get an official is the easiest, but to keep them, that's the big thing, because you lose about 50% of your officials after 2 years. That's a state stat. And but now I think with all these mentoring programs and that, we're maintaining who we have. So hats off to everybody that's involved with high school sports for sure.
John, if someone wants to get involved in, let's say, football, baseball, volleyball, any sport, where would they start in terms of wanting to become an official?
Well, first of all, I tell you, a very good question. And it used to be a seasonal thing where I always told that when I got calls here at the house, I would say about 6 weeks before the season would start, that's when usually the class would start. So if you're talking football, we're saying football starts the second week of August. You're talking July 1st or so. But now it's a year-round deal. You would go on to a website, ohsa.org, and look for officials, and you click that on and just follow through looking for classes or instructors. And I've had a number of calls here now for football and volleyball right now, and I'm sure there'll be other sports involved, but right now that's the two sports that are coming up for the fall. But it's nice now because instructors could have classes for basketball in June if they want, or if they take that off. The OSSA says you could have classes for any sport at any time, but you just have to go online and set it up. And that's probably the biggest thing is you have to have officials that can get onto a computer and get onto the website. Everything is done with the Ohio High School Athletic Association. The class fees are on there. You pay with a MasterCard or whatever. All that stuff is taken care of online. And then all your classes, unfortunately last year, a lot of our classes were Zoom meeting classes. Very few were person-to-person because of the COVID. But now we're going back to the classes. I know that the volleyball and the football classes will be kicking in here very shortly, and they've all set sites for them so they can attend and that. And what it is it's 25 hours of instruction, which seems like a lot, but it's not. And you take a class or you take a test online, and you could retake it if you had to. You have a lot of people helping you, supporting you on that. That's just a part of it. You work scrimmages. We have people coming in and showing you what equipment that you need or whatever to help you. Most of the associations are taking off the local association dues and make it less costly to try to help officials. All these things help, but the biggest thing is if you know an official and you want to get into it, call them and let them help you, or call me. You know, Ron, 24/7, you can call me, and that's the first thing I would do is help anybody that wants to get involved. And anybody that's doing any kind of sandlot or midget football or something, they think that they would like to continue their careers, do it. Get involved with high school. It's a wonderful experience. It's great.
What's the biggest advice you give to new officials that are kind of starting their path or doing their first year of officiating?
The advice I would give them is every game is a learning situation. The biggest thing is if anybody makes a remark, they are not referring to you as a person. They are attacking your uniform. The OHSA and a high school have great regulations where for fans and for coaches, there's very little that goes through high school stuff that it doesn't happen. It's good because there's always the coaches have things that could happen if they would get ejected, which we have very few. Players do get ejected, and once again, sports is something that teaches you about accountability. But as far as a new official, don't let it overwhelm you. You just go out there and you do a job, and really, after a couple weeks, it will slow down if you get 3 or 4 games under your belt, no matter what you're doing, and it slows down. And honestly, the second year of your officiating career is so much better than your first because you learn where some of these schools are at. You're just not being overwhelmed, but there's nothing there that takes away from the satisfaction of walking out of a gym or a baseball field or a football stadium saying that you officiated a game and you're part of a great organization, the officials community. That's wonderful.
Well, one thing I would also add, John, is for those that think they know everything about the favorite sports, trust me, you don't. One of the reasons why you would want to take this class to be an official is just the knowledge that you're going to get. I thought being in baseball, having all the years that I spent in a broadcast booth, well, this is going to be easy as all get out. No, there are things about baseball, the intricacies and the rules of the baseball game that I frankly did not have knowledge of before I started taking these classes. So that's the other thing that I would say. If you're going to take these classes, be serious and just soak in the knowledge that you're about to receive.
And really, Ronnie, what you're just saying is 100% right. And I would like just to say that there's not an age where you can start. There's not about a certain age. Like right now, I would say if I had a son that was a freshman in high school, and let's say a lot of kids play every sport. Some don't play any sports. That's fine, or some just play one or two. But if you like sports, it's not a bad idea to get into it. A freshman, sophomore can do freshman games or sophomore games or JV games in every sport, and you make a few bucks doing it, and plus you're gaining that knowledge. And by the time you're a senior in high school, you have to be out of high school and over 18 to get your Class 1 rating or Class 2. There's 3 ratings, so 3 is a student, 2 is a person that just takes the course, and after their second year, they can take and they actually waive that because of COVID. You can take it after your first year to become a Class 1 official, but the chances of advancement are really there, and I would have to say if I had children in high school, women, volleyball or any sport they want to do, any sport, or men or anything, I would get involved in when they're young. And it's surprising. I have some father-sons that are doing ball now, and they work together, and they just get better every time they step on a court or a field or whatever. And it's just something to think about, but do it. And if you need any information, Ron, I hope you post my name or send my name out with phone number or email address or something. I can get it out there, but we do the best we could with that. If they would go to OHSA.org, look under instructors or secretaries, or my name's on there quite a bit. I'm giving away my age, but I aren't too many titles that I haven't had. So any place you see my name, if there's any questions or anything, give me a call.
John, always a pleasure, sir.
All right, Ron, you take care, and you have a great summer, and looking forward to seeing you down the road.
Amen. All right, John Mang Sr. He is he's very much involved with the football, basketball, and he's definitely involved with the Mahoning County Umpires Association as well.